agreement or whatever. And our restrictions are really sort of, Carol had, farms to communities.
No, I'm trying to sound.
Oh, is that right?
I did that just so you feel better now.
I'll just hit a few things.
Call to order the meeting of March 2014. Would you all please stand for the invocation of your pledge of allegiance?
Lord, we pray that you will give our counsel leaders the faith and courage to carry on their duties, help them to do right, to deal fairly with others, and to place their trust in you. In your name we pray. Amen.
A Boy Scout here asked if he'd come up and help lead the pledge. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Dean, can I have a roll call?
Becker?
Here.
Sauter?
Here.
McBain?
Here.
Schoniger?
Here.
Challenger? Here. Simpson?
Here.
Blakeman?
Here.
Willard?
Here.
Blaisdell?
think you all received the minutes from the February 18th meeting. Is there any questions there, questions? Not, they stand as presented. The reading of communications, I have a couple of letters to read this evening. First one, dear Mayor Blake and members of council and City Manager Willard, the Ladies Auxiliary of Benjamin Firestone Post 290 of Columbiana request permission for the annual Poppy Days to be conducted on Friday and Saturday, May 2nd and 3rd, 2014. We will be contacting the various locations in Columbiana that have been so kind in the past to permit us to distribute the poppies to make certain that we have approval again this year. We do not sell the poppies, but accept contributions to be used by local units to aid veterans in need, their families, and veterans in hospitals throughout the state. All proceeds are channeled to veteran rehabilitation, children, and youth work. The red crepe paper flower was adopted as a memorial flower in 1920 to symbolize the sacrifices of American servicemen and women in every war. Throughout the year, disabled and hospitalized veterans make the poppies in hospitals and convalescent workshops maintained by the auxiliary. We respectfully request your permission to continue this important tradition of our town. Sincerely yours, Joyce Alcorn, American Legion Auxiliary Unit Post 290. I think that's on action. Dear Mr. Willard, American Legion Post 290, Columbiana would like to request permission to hold their annual Memorial Day Parade on Monday, May 26, 2014. The parade will form at 9:30 a.m. and start at 10 a.m., lasting approximately 2 hours. We will be leaving from the square on South Main Street and heading east on Park Avenue to the cemetery. At this time, we would also like to request permission to hold our annual Columbiana Street Fair on September 4th, 5th, and 6th, 2014. This will be our 128th year for the fair. We would like to set up the lower section of Main Street south of Union Street at 12 p.m. on September 3rd and close the rest of Main Street to the square at 5:30 p.m. We are requesting this to allow for traffic to clear Main Street and begin setting up at 6 p.m. Our hope is that this will allow for less congestion around the square and on Main Street. We also request permission to close and block off the city lot next to AAA Tuesday night to allow for J&J Amusements to set their office trailer in during the overnight. We also request permission to hold our parade Thursday evening, September 4th at 6:30. We also submit for use of Firestone Park for parking on September 5th and 6th, using the shuttle buses we have in years past to alleviate some of the parking problems in town. We also request a waiver of the $25 fee for fairs to be held in the city of Columbiana. Thank you for your continued cooperation during fairs past and this coming year. I hope that you will extend our thanks to your staff and all those who helped make the Columbiana Street Fair a success. If you have any questions regarding these requests, please feel free to contact me. Thank you, Jacob Sevick, Columbiana Street Fair Manager. That was not on anything. Take care of it later. Dear Mr. Willard, American Legion Post 290, Columbiana would like to request permission to have a pole-to-pole banner placed across North Main Street, or to have a banner that goes around the circle to be staked into the ground. We request to have this placed on or about 7th of August 2014 to be removed at the conclusion of the Columbiana Street Fair. If you have any questions regarding these requests, please feel free to contact me. Thank you, Jacob Sevick, Columbiana Street Fair Manager. Reports of commissions and boards, you received the Park Recreation and Cemetery Board meeting minutes of January 27th, 2014. Any questions? If not, under recognition of persons desiring to appear, Jacob Sevick regarding Street Fair Memorial Day Parade.
Thank you, Mayor Blake, City Council. As you just heard, obviously we're planning for the next street fair. The first letter that was read is the standard letter we've asked permission and the waiver of the fee that we had in years past. The additional letter, we've got over the last couple years we have meetings wanting to add more for advertising, publicizing it prior to the event. And that's why I put on two different letterheads for you. I can understand that there may be some more discussion that needs to happen with the other, with logistics, maybe talk with Doug or electrical department, whatever. But with that, I just ask for your continued permission to continue to hold the event. Thank you.
Motion now.
I'll move that we approve the request for the street fair as written. Assuming the chief, is there any problem with the?
No, sir, we worked with Mr. Sevick and others before him for many years in the past. These guys know what they're doing, it's like clockwork. We have people internal to our department that it runs very smoothly for
Yes, this
type
is
of
no
site.
different than what's been done in the past, in other words.
What we usually do.
Second. Question, including the battery damage.
I didn't include the damage, because I didn't want to discuss that stuff.
Just wanted to make sure, because you said everything's street fair.
No, I did, just the street fair letter.
Does that include the parade also? Because
Yeah,
that's
the
Memorial Day,
parade,
because that's-
everything that was in the letter related to the actual street fair event itself.
You're all welcome to come in, there's a lot of seats up here. Any other questions?
Does that also consider the waiver of the $25?
Yeah, as written would be, okay. Deanne?
We normally make that contingent on the receipt of certificate of insurance. Becker?
Yes.
Souter?
Yes.
McBain?
Yes.
Schlenker?
Yes.
Cameron? Yes. Simpson?
Yes.
I'd also move that we approve the request for the banner conditional on working it out with the electrical department or the street department, whatever is necessary to get that done.
Second.
The one reason I made this separate was I recall as a kid, there was always a banner going across North Main about the place between the movie theater and whatever was across the street from the movie theater. And in recent years, that hasn't been there. I think it adds a lot to let people know when the fair is. It surprises me, and my grandfather was the street fair manager for years and years and years, and you know, I thought everybody knew that it's the weekend after Labor Day, but a lot of people don't know that, and I think it makes for good advertising.
How does that fit into our sign laws, the banner?
Yes.
Any other questions? Deanne?
McBain?
Yes.
Schlenker?
Yes.
Callender? Yes. Simpson?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes.
Souter?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For everything you guys do. Next is joint report from American Legion Auxiliary Unit 290 regarding annual poppy days.
Like a Legion meeting tonight. Mayor, council, coming to you again regarding our poppy days that we do in town. As I said in my letter, we do not sell them, we take donations. They are made by disabled and hospitalized veterans. We do this every year, it's very, very important, and the money that we raise stays in town, helps our veterans, and with children and services that I would appreciate your support on this. And if I may add, which is in the letter, we will be sending boxes to our troops. April 7th, we're gonna pack boxes. If anybody has addresses of current military people, either here or abroad, if you can get addresses out to the Legion, we would appreciate it. So we can send them boxes, okay? And that's all I have.
Move you approve. Second.
Deanne?
Callender?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Becker?
Yes.
Souter?
Yes.
McBain?
Yes.
Schlenker?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. you guys out in the hallway, there's a lot of open seats in here if you want to come in. Let's start the manager report, we got about 3 minutes.
Sure. I'll just give you an update, in an effort to learn about the county EMA. Most of our superintendents attended a presentation by Luke Newbold at Safety Council this week. We plan to build off of that and really be able to conduct mock drills here among our departments to be prepared for emergencies. Which I'll touch upon that a little bit later. So I'm up against the 1.5 minute mark here. Wastewater plant, we're out at a lift station last week or so with the backup pumps. We're having some problems. It's just an aging lift station that needs some serious upgrades, and we're going to have to be working on that in the next month or so. Street department, we plowed and salted recent weather events. They were, we're still good on salt supplies, and I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. Weather pending, we'll continue to patch holes and pick up leaves. You know, as much as we can, we'll get out there. They're good?
All right, it's 7:15, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started on the public hearing. The public hearing is in regards to the water rates and the payment of the loans for the new water plant in the city of Columbiana. And I think the best way to do this, since there's a lot of people here, and we want to hear from you. I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion from council as well. This portion of it, I think we want to hear your thoughts. I don't know how much you all have followed it in the press, but for the last several years we've been trying to acquire a water plant. It really is needed. Any of you who know me or follow anything that I say, I don't put my name on something that costs money lightly, especially if it's going to involve additional costs. And I personally am not in agreement with the costs that were recommended by this consultant, but I do think that we have to do something. That said, I want to open up the floor to any of you who come that you want to speak and tell us your thoughts. Since there's so many, you want to start maybe in the go by row.
I'll start for you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So let's switch hats here for just a minute. Utility bill came in today. Our cost for water is $19.62 for 3 units of water. If you had a $21 surcharge, more than doubles that portion of our bill. Fortunately for my wife and I, where we live, we have a septic system, so we don't pay a sewer charge. So we're blessed that way because we have a little less on our bill than most of Columbiana does. Previous councils should be ashamed of themselves, especially those who've been seated for a long time. And we've pushed this off, to now. That being said, as a future parent, that the $21 surcharge is what needs to happen to ensure the safety and quality of the water for my children down the road. So be it. My request for this council is to start doing and stop talking. We've had too much of that in the past. If surcharge is added, it absolutely needs to have an expiration date to it. Too many times everything's, well, it's just a temporary thing. But when you do this, I hope you don't take it lightly to not just say, well, we'll get to that when we get to it, but to say if in 48 months, 60 months, it expires and it goes back to not having that charge. And perhaps at that point, I would imagine we need an additional charge on our rates to keep up with future upgrades and cost of repairs to continue having quality water and hopefully head off any future plans of, do a surcharge again in the future when we're all long and gone and our children and grandchildren are here. Thank you.
Bill Sale, Railroad Street. I live in a 4-room house, 2 people. My bill this month is 38 something. What's the sewer bill?
Can't hurry up.
What?
His current bill is $38.
The current bill is $38, plus the sewer charge on it, which brought it up into almost $70. I don't see any excuse for a $90 water bill. The electricity is outrageous as far as I'm concerned for a home with 2 people. So,
I agree with you.
My name is Jerry Kurtz. I got my water bill yesterday. Dam Lake 2, $49.05 for the water, $55.70 for the sewer. $90.66 for the electric. 2 people in the house, in the building. That's quite a bit of money. And if this is, I don't know what you all are planning on doing, but if this bill is gonna double, I'm gonna have to purchase it. So I can't afford that. I'm on a limited income. I don't know. I lived in North Lima. If our water bill was $30, our sewer bill was $30. Out here, there's no rhyme or reason. The water and the sewer bill never match. The sewer is always more expensive. That's the way it was when I lived in North Lima. You know, because you base the sewer on your water consumption.
Sure.
Okay?
Maybe before we,
I don't know.
maybe we should do a little explanation.
Yeah, that would be good, because I don't know what y'all are planning on doing there.
The water plant, sure, and firstly, this will also help Dennis, Jacob discussed. I do agree that past councils should have been doing something small to save up. And I believe that the school should have been doing that with the roof. There is a small difference in the cost difference between those two things. A roof is a couple $100,000, and our current estimate on this is $22 million. We 14 for the plant plus the land. In engineering, it's extremely high. So what's transpired, we've got, for years, we approached USDA and tried to get loans and grants to pay for the lion's share of the plant. And a few years ago, they finally came to the table and said that they were willing to work with us to give us the grant money. And it was originally going to be like a 60-40 split, and then it changed to a 65-35, and then 70-30, and it kept going down based on the income of the residents of the city, correct? An average?
It's currently at $4 million. So.
Right, but I mean, originally, the share, the stake of that was much higher. I mean, we were talking 7-8 million, and it kept sliding down. That said, we also secured very low interest rate loans to long-term pay for a portion of that. We got all of that part of it done three years or so ago, and we worked with Arcadis, the engineering company, and now they've come back and said, this is what this is going to cost. Apply for all of your loans, get everything in place, and then we actually took it to bid. And it didn't come anywhere close to where they said it was gonna be. They said it was gonna be around $13 million and came in around 17, correct? Then they did that, I mean, they were more than $4 million off, more than 30% wrong. So we threw out the bids, and we didn't accept it. We didn't say, okay, we're spending this money. We sent them back to the drawing board. And so right now, we're in the process of trying to figure out what we can afford. Do we need to scale down the water plant? There's multiple things that are going into the discussions from a council standpoint, an engineering standpoint, of what we can afford and not. At the same time, almost a year ago, I think it was March of 2013, we started the rates study from a water standpoint. There's a gentleman that came back and said it needs to be $21. The $21 fee that he came back with is based on the assumption of us going forward with a $21 million project and upkeeping a $21 million project and everything that goes along with it. And I don't think that that's our intention. That's why we didn't accept the bid. So, that said, the $21 fee that they've proposed, I don't think council as a whole has accepted. It was a recommendation to us. So we're not having this meeting saying we want to make it a $21 fee, but that is the fee that they have mathematically come back and said, based on the current users on our system, and at the current cost of what's proposed to us, this is what it's going to cost every user. And it's not for 3 or 4 years, it's for the term alone.
How many users are being billed for the electric company right now?
This is for the water, I think it's around 3,000.
3,000, that's, there's only 6,000, and we're only getting half. Yeah, 3,000 for, water, 3,500 for electric customers.
That's, you gotta remember that the population of the city is a little bit over 6,000.
Right.
But a lot of houses have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people living in it.
Okay. So that's kind of what I just was wondering what the actual billing was on the bill, so that would make it go up. How about if we just got a correlation of what people can afford, $10 a month? You know, say it's for, just for the plant. And then it would give us a number. And then we could just put that out there to these contractors, say, hey, this is what we got to work with, we've come close.
Well, I mean, that's a little bit of what we're doing right now. We didn't do it with a dollar amount, because I never like giving someone a dollar amount, because then they're gonna spend it.
Yeah, right.
So, but I think where we're at right now is going back and saying, we were approved for this dollar amount for a grant and this amount for a loan, no more. And we don't have the means of doing more without financially breaking the back of every person here. So we need to reverse engineer what they've already done, which took 3 years to get to this point in the first place. I mean, from a council standpoint, I know I personally sat on the council, but there was action done. It took that long for the engineering to take place, and we couldn't get the grant money until the engineering was done to submit to them. And by the time all that's submitted, the prices have changed on everything they gave us.
Do we still qualify for that zero interest loan?
It's not zero, it's very low.
Very low?
It's very.
And if we get behind or can't pay it, then that's gonna go up, right? That will increase in our.
Absolutely, but they won't even, that's why we're having this discussion right now, because we can't go forward if we can't show the banks that we can make that payment based off of our current water bills. That's why we have to show them that we've added something to repay. So, and this isn't just a fee bill for a couple of years, it's pay back the loan.
How about the offset on the electric? Because we all know it jumped, you know, suspiciously high. We all have reasons why it did that, but the point is, can we back that down to offset the cost of this project?
So the suggestion I made 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to be fair to everybody in the city. It's really, it's pretty high.
This is actually one of the cheapest bills that I've ever had.
11.5 cents.
For the water, electric, water, sewer. I've never had a bill under $200 for 2 people. I paid up to $320, and I have questioned that. That's a lot of money.
I agree with you. I don't know how many of you saw my letter today in the paper, but I sent that letter because I believe that if we impose a $21 fee and we just dive into this and start doing it, first of all, we don't know if it's gonna be a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, by the time everything is re-engineered and everything is secured. I mean, we obviously need to start bringing in something to show good faith to the creditors that we can make good on what we're gonna borrow. That said, I don't think we need to dive headfirst into something when we don't even have something to dive into.
Right.
So I think that we need to take all that into consideration. But I feel like I'm doing all the talking.
Yeah, just as a point of order, we ask the people who would like to speak to council to come up to the microphone, tell us who you are, where you live, and then go ahead with what you're doing, because, you know, we've had a couple of people making comments here, and I have no idea who you are. They're good comments, but I'd like to be able to say, attribute them to the appropriate person. So,
Is everybody, you want to give your name?
I'm Dan Woods. I own the vacuum tech company here in town. about paying this loan back. Is there like a 4-year, we have to pay it back 8 years, or can we go the 40 years? So can we leave, say it's $10 a month? Because I did the math on the 14.7 million, it's about $8 a month. Okay, people can live with $8 a month. Okay, and then somebody said 21, and I'm like, well, where's the 21 coming from? If you do the math, yeah, right, it was the early estimate, I understand.
Well, the 14 is only for the building, I mean, the construction, that doesn't include the engineering costs, which were a couple $1 million.
Because I was understanding it was.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's all, by the time you add it all together.
That's just hardware.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, and then we had a part of the 21, the parts that I personally didn't agree with, they took preventative maintenance and everything that you could ever want to lump into taking care of it, which we already have in our annual budgets, and added that into that fee, which to me would free up all of the money that's going into the water rate to go to nothing. I mean, because everything will be paid for in that $21 fee. So I think that part of it needs to be reduced right off the top because of that.
Personally, I think that offsetting some of the electric costs would help everybody. It would get the thing built, and it would make people who are really upset, and I know a lot of them about electric prices around here, you know, because they weren't always that high. And if anybody's ever read my Facebook page, they know, you know, I'm really against this all of a sudden, you know, doing these shenanigans, and it needs to end.
I don't know that they're shenanigans. We are faced with a dilemma here, and we've got to find the best win-win policy for the entire town.
I agree about that, but this electric bill going up before this was even an issue. This electric, they knew this was gonna be an issue. Things have happened over the past couple of years that shouldn't have happened, knowing this was coming up.
Mayor, point of order, please. We have a rate study working right now on the electric to see what we should do or shouldn't do. I think for tonight, we should stick with the water. We'll address, do the same thing when we get the rate study on the electric.
I was told that it would be in 2 weeks, right?
I would like to talk about a date for a special meeting, just to talk about that. Open the floor.
We're talking two different things.
Well, I was trying to time the year to say the electric decrease would help offset the cost for the building of the sewers.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, I understand.
If we start going too far, we'll most likely won't get to everybody in the room that'd like to discuss the water.
I'll shut up and let someone else talk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, good evening. Robert Straher, been a resident here in Columbiana for the last 10 years. Just a couple of quick questions, I guess I can talk later. What is the current rate for the water part? Because that was...
$6.54 per thousand.
Okay, which is considerably less than the market right now. What is the surcharge per bill?
There's a minimum charge if, you know, if,
What's it, I mean, like for instance, Aqua has a $10 meter charge. What is the
There's no
meter charge?
There's no charge.
Okay.
No charge.
All right, and then second, or I guess that would be third. Peak rate water plant right now is 1.5 million.
No. It's a million, isn't it?
It's a million.
Million. New plants, 3 million.
Yeah.
Tripling capacity, available for growth. Actually, that's only 50% growth, isn't it? Because if you have, is that 3 times the growth?
It's 300%.
Because the peak rate, for the average, what's the average daily rate?
Average is 6 million on a hot day.
600,000
Yeah.
on a hot day.
Yeah, 9.
Okay, so 60%.
600,000 and
60%.
900,000.
So it's not quite.
Actually, some days they exceed capacity.
Okay, all right, and then, the meter, the $21 figure, that was planned over 3,000 meters. That was for life alone. The cost of that was basically, we're not talking about increase in rates, just the meter cost that's subsidized, correct? Okay. I'll leave that.
Second row?
I am Bob Belding. I live out on Route 14, 45459. We have city water there at the moment, and we know that we've got some of the best water in the county. We have one of the best water rates in the county. We have a rental home in another town that we pay the water for, and it's astronomical in comparison to what we pay here. We also have a water plant was started over 100 years ago, as you mentioned in your letter, or nearly that. I think our crew has worked tremendously well. Those of you who have never been to the water plant ought to go sometime. You could pretty much eat off anything that you can find there, off the floor. I mean, the place is immaculate. They do a marvelous job for the resources that they have. So nobody's been throwing money away at that rate. Nobody's brought that up at all, and I just want to just stand up for our guys and say, attaboy. You know, at this point, from what I'm hearing, we don't have a set fee. The $21 isn't set. We don't know for sure what the plant's going to cost. So those things are going to be variable. But I would like to go on record as saying, I feel that this is something that I, as a taxpayer, need to pay ahead on, and I'm willing to do that as my better half. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Parker, 204 Homestead, a 5-year resident, and a former resident of about 8 different communities in 3 different states, and this is the highest utility cost that I've ever experienced. I've heard a lot of comments about bargains here. I don't know where you've lived before, but it sure wasn't Columbiana. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that the service is bad or that it's not a clean plant or all that stuff. That's wonderful. But I got to tell you that it's not an equitable system of billing, that the water rates and the sewer rates are really out of line in my estimation, particularly those of us who irrigate or water our plants in the summer. Everywhere I've lived, we've had some kind of concessions for sewer charges in the summer. And I don't know why that's not true here. Certainly, less water goes into the sewer system in the summer than it must other times of the year. At least that'd be my guess. And it just seems unfair, particularly as we're going forward talking about higher billing, and the sewer rates, I suppose, will mirror that along the way. And I, for one, find it difficult to understand why the sewer rate would be higher than the water rate. Can we buy water elsewhere? I haven't heard that discussed. That's a possibility, I suppose. I know a lot of communities around here buy from some distance away. We're near a very large reservoir down the road called Pine Lake. I don't know anything about the water systems here, so I'm not going to sound like I know anything, but that's a question I have. I heard someone say something about how good the water was. I haven't drunk the water in 5 years, and I don't think I ever will. So you can say what you will about the quality of the water. I would raise a question about that. We talked about the cost of the total project. I'm not sure I heard exactly. 22 million, and we're trying to raise how much?
I mean, if it were off the total amount, it's gonna be close to 18, because we have grants for 4.
Well, it will be, I guess I'll be long gone by the time you lay that
Anyone else in the second? Anyone in the third row? We have someone from America for Prosperity here this evening? Okay. Yeah?
I'm being quiet.
All right.
Wagner, 7th Street. I was here last week talking about the electric rates, which I know we're not going to discuss that much, but I did get my $589 bill for my all-electric home. We had a power outage last night for 2.5 hours, and it was -2 degrees according to my computer. So it was interesting to see how fast my temperature would drop in my house. It only went down to 68, so that shows that my house was not a leaky, wasted house and I'm wasting electricity. But my electric bill is $515.86 plus a $3.50 surcharge. My water usage is high, it's 5, and I don't know why. This month, next month it'll be 4. But anyway, so this $589 bill, if you add the $21 to that, my bill would be $610 or so, and I really cannot afford that on a fixed income. So whatever, I know you have to build a plan. I'm not saying that I'm not willing to pay a part, but hopefully we'll keep it down. And I hope that everybody will come to the electric meeting in a couple weeks.
Anyone else in the third row? Fourth row?
Hello, Stephen Du Bois, Woodland Avenue, Columbiana here. I have a fairly good understanding of a lot of the happenings. I understand it's needed on stuff. My two issues that I think I have is one, bringing this for us now when we don't know the numbers, kind of like what we hit. It kind of builds the crowd into a frenzy when we don't know our numbers. I mean, this could be $10 by the time we're not $20. So having these discussions now without having full information, what the total is going to be, all this stuff that's added on top of it, that's going to be, and we can go forward without basically getting people worked up and step it in, keep it low, try it out, see what happens. The other issue is that you saw a gentleman over here with a $30 bill. If you have that same surcharge for that $30 bill compared to, say, Dutch House or Dutch Village Inn, where that surcharge is a drop in the bucket, I don't feel it's right to be able to take that straight across the board and make the single person that's using 1,000 gallons of water have the same surcharge compared to somebody that's using 20,000 gallons of water. It just doesn't seem fair to put that percentage as that burden on the person that have the least amount of money. This year has been probably one of the worst winters in recent history as far as utilities. And people are having a hard time catching up, getting out of it. And it just, right now, I don't think is the right time to be discussing such a large number to be added onto the monthly bill. I think it needs to be put off down the road, making future meetings here to try and establish what we need to do, but I just think that number is too high, too soon for what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, comment?
Thank you.
Had the council, and I'm not throwing rocks at council, it's passed, but had the council put a $10 surcharge on the water bill back in '09 when we first started talking about, really seriously talking about water plant, we would most likely had put aside $1.8 million by now. Okay, in order to get this loan that we want to get in order to be able to buy this water plant, we have to show the ability to pay it back. The same as you go to the bank to buy a house, you have to show that ability. That's the reason why we're talking now. Plus, if we start collecting it now, we'll have more money. We won't have to borrow so much money. And it'll end result being cheaper for the community. That's the reason why we're talking now.
Well, it's end result, yeah, but right now it's going to be very hard.
It's going to be at least a month if I make a motion tonight, say, let's put $30 surcharge on the water bill. It's going to be at least a month before we could even do that, and 2-3 months before we start collecting. By the time it goes through the process.
But yeah, well, the way I understand with the numbers that are involved in that $21 includes a lot more stuff than what really needs to be in it. You have your general stuff that gets taken care of every year out of your maintenance fund and stuff like that, that I understand fiscal needs is actually figured into that.
I can't answer that one,
Oh,
but that's
that's
the reason
what
I was answering
yeah,
your question. That's why we're
yes.
talking now. We should have been doing it a while
Oh, I-
back, because we knew we need to do
Yes,
water plants.
yes.
And it's kind of like what you just said, let's put it on.
But, yeah, you see what you get. I mean,
Well,
it's
that's fine.
gonna be, it's a shock and awe type of value that right now.
I agree.
We're just like, you know, waiting where, if you ease into it, we're gonna try 10, dollar a month and see what that does. If it doesn't do it, we can always go back and try and.
We
see
still
what that
have to demonstrate the ability to pay
Well,
it back before
yes.
we can get it. That's the problem.
But I agree, it's just that doesn't have to be probably that steep of a.
Well, we haven't decided that.
No, that's what, I'm here today to tell you that I don't think that, yeah, so, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Rob Schwartz, been a resident for 42 years, all my life. And I would like council to answer the one question the gentleman had about other options. Like, we realize that the price has increased to $22 million from what we originally budgeted. There's nothing to say that it can't increase additionally to that. If we can't agree on an amount now, if it has to be more, at what point do we draw the line and say, we can't do this? So what is the contingency plan one? It doesn't involve possibilities of outsourcing that or privatizing it, or something like that.
I honestly don't speak for myself, but I haven't had that discussion with anyone of privatizing it yet. That's what this hearing is for, to get people's thoughts on everything. I would never personally roll that out, but I don't make the decision.
Well, it's obvious that we can't go to just an unlimited amount without some kind of cap. We realize that we're paying at some point way more than it's worth.
Let me go back a little bit. We originally had a price of over $4 million, Lance. Applied for the grant, we got it. USDA said they didn't have any money for 3 years. So then we come up with Arcadius's estimate. They come up with this, what I think is a ridiculous figure. Maybe the plant's too big. USDA came in our favor and they said, Arcadius, you go back, redesign or whatever you can do at no cost to the city of Columbiana, which was amazing. This engineering firm is working. We do not have that figure yet. They want them to come explain why it went from 12 million to this figure. So this $21 is the figure that USDA basically rejected. Now we're back, Arcadius has to come back with an answer. Why? It's usually when an engineer figures a project, where you're allowed to get 10% over and you can still accept the bid. So they come on in, but 30%, 40% over. USDA says, hey, wait a minute, you guys screwed up somewhere. Go back and do it again at no cost to the city. And that's where it's at right now. So we don't have a figure. The $21 is what USDA rejected and says, go back and do it again.
$21 million.
Yeah.
The $21 monthly
The $21
fee in our package tonight, the USDA is actually
Yeah, but it's
suggested is a good dollar amount. We won't.
Our USDA supports $21.
Right, they said they agree with it. So
USDA agreed with the $21.
Yeah,
For that plan.
Even if we agree that $21 is good, it could go up. Grants over the last couple of years have decreased. That could potentially happen. Grants could get
go
pulled
down
before we ever get to a conclusion here. So what I'm asking is, what's the contingency plan? We know there's other options, and
think that's something that obviously needs to be discussed, so that we don't go and just get back against the wall and then just get handed something and get forced to take it that way, when there's other options.
I agree with you.
So no one at all has come up with an amount
We,
of costs.
we did have a citizens committee and members of council looked at options. This has been, what, 4 years ago maybe. Do you want to tie into another town? Do you want to do this? Do you want to? And the total consensus was unanimous. They wanted the city to keep their well water and have their own plant. So we did do that. That's when this started then.
And I understand that that's what we wanted to have. And we all probably want to do that.
But you got to understand, we are working on it. This figure we're coming up with, I won't vote on $21.
And even though everybody wants to keep the plant here and wants to do that, we have to have a contingency plan. So that
Well, I know we looked at a couple, about 2 years ago, we received a cost, I think it was around $1.5 million to $2 million for us to tap into Aqua. I mean, for what that's worth, I mean, we know that number. So I'm not suggesting we go that route, but I also wouldn't say that we're completely naive to that approach. So, I mean, we have, and that number could have changed in the last couple of years.
That number will change just because the oil and gas activity has driven the options for easements and all that sort of stuff through the roof. And people that are out there are gonna say, oh gee, the oil company paid me this much, how come you're only paying me, a tenth of that? So there's gonna be a lot of difficulties with anything like that. All costs are increasing.
would it be too hard to at least have someone look into that?
We have the figures. Lance could dig them up, what they were.
How long ago was that?
Well, they're also looking
Year and a
into
half,
those
maybe.
now too, so. They're looking into refreshing those figures.
Yeah. So
We already have
they
them.
came back to us, and I'm not gonna get into our closed door discussions, but they came back to us and said, we're not giving you the money based on the $22 million, period. Either downscale the plant, find someone else to bid it out, get a different engineer, and then they came a step further when Wolf's time out and said, Arcadis, you completely screwed this up. At your expense, you're to re-engineer this. So we're in that process right now. Re-engineering something, there's engineers, it takes time. This isn't something that we can just overnight that, but I mean, we are planning regardless, but I am 100% against a large fee. And I personally would rather do something like that than come back and put the city on the hook for $27 million.
Well, then what's the option if we don't have another plant? If the plant goes down, we're talking about having a plant that's not.
Richard, we do have these costs. He can bring them up. They're a year and a half old. We can tell you what they are, but the committee of a number of citizens and a number of, they came up. And if you look at the cost, what Latonia's paying, what Washington's paying, the cost is.
I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, but we do have that.
Okay, that's what I asked, one. And then two, has anybody ever approached someone like Oklahoma, or, other towns have had companies approach in buying and managing and doing that. Has someone ever approached Columbiana to help?
Part of the pre-engineering study in the 06 and probably 09 looked at 6 options, looked at all of those.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want you to understand, I won't vote for a $21 fee. It's gonna have to come down.
We don't agree on much, but I think
We agree on that.
I might make my statement. Megan Cowan, I live on Kingwood. I'm also a school employee, so I understand the significance of not stagnating and moving forward. I teach under a leaky roof. So I do agree with making plans, having nice water, that's all well and good. However, my husband and I do everything we can to make choices in our home to bring our costs down, to spend as little as we can. So I'm just asking you to consider the option of basing whatever fees that we have to pay based on usage instead of a flat rate. That gives us the choice. So if somebody's using more, they pay more. If somebody uses less, like we do, and we make that choice to cut back on our usage, then we can control that bill and still be doing a part to help pay.
So that would be passed into a rate rather than adding up the fee? Because if we raise the rate, then that would naturally do that. We have to also be careful, so you know, if we go the opposite way and we raise and put it all on rate, it could drive industrial business out of town that employs a lot of people. So we really have to walk the fine line. I mean, I'm as much for keeping your costs down, I promise you. I've fought for the last 4 years. I mean, very uncomfortable situations for all of us sometimes. I don't want to put my name on something like that, but we do have to be careful to not take the industry that is invested here and move out over the cost of water alone, because then we're in a worse situation where we have no employers, or at least the many less of them, and a lot of unemployed people that aren't paying the city taxes that pay for everything else other than water. So we have to it is a very fine balancing act that we're all involved in.
It's not an easy decision, I understand that, but the other end of that is, you know, you could lose those businesses if they feel that way, but you also, like you've already heard here tonight, you could have people putting their homes up for sale, and you could lose community members too. At least this way, we feel like we have some control over
I want to come up with something, if we have to do this, that no one likes, just so you know, because it's the only way that everyone is going to win. As much as that doesn't sound right, if I'm not happy with it, I'm sure someone else in here will be. If you're not happy with it, I'm sure a business will be. We have to do something that no one is going to absolutely love. There is no way to do this where everyone's going to be totally happy. And it's all going to fall on our shoulders, but it has to be done. I mean, the water is not something we can live without. If we factored over the course of the years, it's expensive. I mean, at $21, I think over the course of this thing, it's probably $10,000 a home. But how much does it cost to dig a well in your yard? So I mean, as bad as that is, I mean, those are all things that we have to take into consideration, because we're going to have those costs one way or another. I'm not saying we will today, I'm not saying we will tomorrow, but if the water plant goes down 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and we haven't done something, we're going to be digging wells.
Let me bring up another point if I can, Brian. Or you finished?
Oh, I was just gonna mention one more thing, like our last bill, was $13. So if you're talking about a $21, you know, rate, which I've already heard some of you say you're not for anyway, you know, that would be to us when we conserve and try and do the best we can to, you know, have our bills be as low as possible. That's really a smack in the face to have, you know, have it more than double of what our usage even is. So just more things to consider as you were looking at all the pictures. Thank you.
If I could bring up,
You could have a water consulting service.
there was someone asked how many customers were, I don't remember, and there was a difference between the electric customers and the water customers by something like 500. 500. So in talking more, the reason for that is, like the Manor Apartments is on 2 meters for how many apartments? 400?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we change this to residences instead of meters, we could add another 400 to 500 people to it, which would basically, in my math, automatically cut it about $3 off the 21 right to start with without doing anything else. So there are things we can work on. So that would add, you know, adding that many more customers. Because it isn't fair that 400 families live on 2 meters and would pay $42. So there's things we're working on.
Next row back, was there anyone in the back? Anyone in the back row over here? Go ahead.
One more time, the current rate $6.54. All right, I just emailed my office and asked them to send me my quote for Aqua. in business, if we privatize or, Rob Schwartz made a good point about privatizing. In business, you're gonna look at your competition, and, I do it, every so often. I'm not gonna sell a house for what, somebody in Boardman is gonna sell it for less for the same exact product. With that said, houses is hard to compare, but water's not. Water's measured by gallons. So it's very easy to compare. Water quality, I believe the water quality is great. I drink it every day, right from my fridge, and my entire family does. So I didn't do that when I lived in Poland, but I do that here in Columbiana, if that means anything. But looking at privatizing, okay, or looking as if we're a private entity looking at this. Let's look at our competition, okay? So, some people say their water bill is X. If I told you my water bill is, you think I'm lying because I got 3 boys and a wife and I come home muddy every day and have to take a shower twice. So it goes by usage. I personally think you made a great point, and I was going to head there. There's 3,000 meters. There's X number of residences. We go by residences, automatically we're going to increase our meters, or our meter drop, so to speak, by 20%. Columbiana grew 12.5% from 2000 to 2012. Okay, that's basically 1% per year. Okay, there's a fixed usage for the new plant, and there's a variable usage. The variable usage is roughly about 1/3, I believe, of the current rate, according to the study that was presented last time around. So, if you look at just doing a few things, okay, one is making the rate the same as Aqua. All of a sudden, that $21 a month goes down to $15 a month, $15.50.
What is their rate?
0.0731245. So it's that's $7.31 per thousand. Is that how, or per thousand? Okay, so $7.31 per thousand, considerably more. In business, I would say that it's quite a bit more. Okay, so if we make that rate the same, all of a sudden the meter goes down to $15.50. Now on my bill from Aqua, I have a $10.58 fee, customer fee. It's a flat fee on it. So now we're only $5 a unit difference, and I didn't factor in the 20% growth. But $5 multiplied by 3,000 members, if there's a 20% increase, it's probably going to drop roughly $2 or $3 again. So we're not that far off from where we need to be.
That's what we have to look at.
We need that comparison.
Yeah.
Okay, we need that chart right there saying, okay, here's our competition, guys, here's where we're at. If we tap into Aqua, it's going to cost $1.5 million, $2.5 million right now.
Plus we're going to pay more for water.
Plus you're going to pay the same rate. So let's look at the competition. That's number one. Number two is the factor of the $21 was multiplied at 2% over the course of 40 years. Okay, even 2% on the first 10 years is you're paying a lot of interest. There's no growth factored in. We're going to grow. We're building the plant according to us growing. So there has to be some type of growth factor, whether or not the USDA needs to understand that growth or not. We have to understand the growth, and the commitment that you guys make to the community needs to understand the growth. Hypothetical, you guys say, okay, we have to slap a $13, $15 surcharge on per household. However, once the growth rate peaks, which I think it will faster than you guys think, because once you have the capacity, the other municipalities may tie in. I'm going to request 2-inch meters, or possibly for sprinklers. I'm going to hopefully get that approved and request a residential meter for some of the homes that, Firestone Farms. They have to have a meter, 1 meter per house. If they could go to having a sprinkler system just on 1 meter, it would save the sewer bill. Mr. Parker's going to run his sprinkler system probably morning and night now versus just in the morning because he's having to pay a sewer bill. So we're going to go through more water. And if a third of that is going back to the fixed cost, it's not going to take that much more. It's $800,000 shortage per year is where we're at, I believe, okay? $756. So we have to make the, alone, by increasing the rate, we already accounted for $181,000 just by going from $6.54 to $7.31 per thousand. So doing that, now our shortage is only $568,000. So again, these are approximate numbers. I hear you typing over there. They're approximate. So chicken scratch. So, but even just with that, those, you know.
That's pretty
roundabout
accurate
figures.
what you come up with, Rob.
What's that?
That's pretty accurate what you come up with.
Okay, so if we do some of those, you know, transparent comparisons, and say if we privatize, this is what it's gonna cost us. However, if there is an increase, and this is just an option, and maybe I shouldn't speak in front of everybody here, but if we need to be hit with a $13 a month surcharge, and that, you know, is going to dwindle down over the course of the next 10 years because we're factoring in a growth rate, we may make a commitment for the following 10 years of giving that same amount back to the community as we keep growing. You know, if it goes from $13 down to $1, have it go the other way. A $1 going to a $13 credit, so it's a 20-year commitment to the community. We're going to charge you for the next 10 years, and we're going to poke around and reimburse you that money that you loaned us. So we feel like, hey, it's almost like putting money in the bank versus it being, you know, a fee and we're never going to see it again. I mean, just some thoughts. But the big thing is, you know, as a business person, I look at it, how do I sell more? I have the availability to sell, how do I sell more? One is irrigation, and two is other municipalities. I absolutely think you guys can do it. I mean, let's just look at the competition, because nobody's really talked about the facts of what, besides Aqua, I don't know who else sells water around here, but besides Aqua, other municipalities, what they're charging. But Aqua's really the only person that pretty much, you know, get us online, I think, right now, and has the capacity to do so. So, but anyways, just some thoughts, and I appreciate all you guys, how much time and effort. I know you're stressing about this, but this is something that, you know, that I believe keeping the water here, just because of you guys are a lot easier to work with. As a city water department, it's incredible. How you maintain the lines is incredible, and coming to council versus, you know, anybody here, try calling off while talking to any type of management, and it's, you know, it's a little more difficult than being able to come here and talk directly with you guys. So I appreciate the council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Good. We'll move into the manager's report, but I would also suggest that if you, part of what we're going to discuss here shortly is the budget for 2014, which also makes up a lot of the rates for the different departments, including water and electric and everything else. So, well, that's everybody back in your manager's
Sure.
update.
So, as far as the rate study being done for electric, I know we're trying to get a lot of stuff done at once, but, I'm gonna try to get some dates for a special meeting later in March. See if we could, you know, all be back here and just discuss electric rates and have the, electric rate people come in here and, show us their pie charts. So if you have any dates that, you know, March 25th is a Tuesday night and it's not good for everybody. I'd like all the council to be here. I understand that that's not a good date, but, or we could, you know, set it up sometime this week. But, you know, I mean, as far as what date we're gonna hold it, but we would definitely advertise and, you know, put it out to the public and to invite everybody.
Most of the people in here, you want to stay away from Monday night.
Monday night? Okay.
Some of us Wednesdays.
You said the 25th is bad?
25th is bad. And if you get a couple dates in the next couple days, I'll get back to the rate study guys and see what their schedule is. So I can do that this week if you'd like, and then we can get back and advertise that as soon as we figure out a date. Does that sound fair enough? We had a planned water outage at Route 14 and 164. Water crews and probably another department or two helped throughout the night. It was a really nice planned dig They did a great job, and they were out for 9 hours in those 0 degrees temperatures, and I believe that was last Wednesday. So just, I think they did a great job, and they planned it and minimized the outages and the effect on people. And I guess they found a pretty good leak that, or a pretty good potential for a major leak that they were able to that were able to stop. And you know, several of the residents called in about it. And if you ever suspect water leaks, go ahead and call the police department, and we'll get somebody out there to test it. And we'd rather do it on our terms than have the water blowing up 30 feet and trying to get through that. So last night we had a power outage, and you know, we noticed cold temperatures, and that both Columbiana crews came out, and also Ohio Edison came out. We actually had a Ohio Edison primary line come down on ours, and call came in about 10 o'clock, and it's just a beautiful thing to see the departments interact and work together. We had some citizens call in, you know, telling us about the outages, and I can turn it over to the chief, and he can kind of go down what else came about.
Especially when you get an incident like this, it's a major unusual incident that happens, it's out of the ordinary. We view it as a crisis and or a disaster of sorts. And what you need to understand is that city crews, and especially the police and fire services, have emergency operations plans that plan for these contingencies. What do we do if? And you know, if plan A doesn't work, how about the other 25 letters of the alphabet? What do we have? We like to plan it out 4 steps, and we use an acronym called PACE, P-A-C-E. We have a primary plan, alternative plan, contingency plan, and emergency plan. And beyond that, then things get really deep and really bad. That's what we did last night. When we got the call at 10:06 p.m. from a resident who said that there was a problem, power was out. We began to get other calls and to find out the scope of the problem. We immediately notified the electric department superintendent, who then goes into his emergency operations plan and gets crews onto the scene. That all happened within about 3 minutes last night. We had everybody woken up and en route to the call. We had officers go out and handle the unmanned traffic signals where there are major intersections where the lights were out. Probably a bigger concern was last night, as you know, was below zero. It was one of the coldest March 3rds on record. And we looked at people's needs. So what happens? What drives emergency response? And the answer to that is need drives it. How's need identified? Needs identified by people calling in and asking for help. I can tell you that last night we received no calls for help of an emergency nature other than the power was out. What could constitute a call for help? That's somebody that's getting really cold because the power is going to be out for days, for a week, even for overnight. We have contingency plans in place for that at the local and the county level, and even moving up to the state level if that becomes necessary over a prolonged outage. We can set up warming stations. We have contingency plans. We can publicize and get out to you to let you know what to do if you call in with need. How do you call in with need? If it's an emergency, you need help right away, there's a medical problem, there's somebody on oxygen who can't operate an oxygen machine now, that's a 911 call, and we'll try to get you the help that you need to get you back up online or get you to a place that's warm or open up whatever shelter needs that we have. Any type of other problem is a 10-digit call to the standard number you've had here for years, 482-9292. That also gives us information about your needs, helps us to start a response and figure out who we need to call to get what you need. But the thing I want to reassure everybody is that there are plans in place. We don't do it by the seat of our pants. And the fact that Lance brought up these drills and so forth, we do these kind of tabletop and ad hoc. We want to get a little bit more formal so that we know when something happens that we have that plan in place to make sure we have the contingencies covered. Just so you know, last night, other than the electric guys and the cops and the others were out there freezing to death outside, nobody called us with a need for a warming station or any kind of thing like that. Generally, the first option is shelter in place. That's a term that means you stay where you are and do the best you can, get out some blankets and try to make it through. Beyond that, then you call for help. We try to get you to some place to get you warm. This could apply to an elderly person, a person with a medical issue, things like that. So in a nutshell, that's basically it. If you want me to elaborate or answer any questions from council or the public, I'd be happy to do that. Just from an emergency response. I can't answer electrical questions. I don't know anything about that. But I can tell you what our response is in terms of emergency operation.
Well, I can tell you, I was just proud to, see the electric crew out, and of course, that's why Doug's not here, he's probably sleeping, they were up all night, so. And actually, after we started bringing people up, our crew stayed on until Ohio Edison was done. So, we had some people here around the clock, 3 to 7 a.m., so it was a really nice thing to see it all interact, so.
Excuse me, I have a question for you. If people, like if you have a disaster, because I called Lisbon on this before, what if people can't use their phones? Shouldn't something be set up ahead of time so that if people are able to drive somewhere, they can go, but they don't have a phone? And I saw you guys patrolling last night when it was all dark, and I thought that was really great. But how would people get your attention? It was -2 degrees out. I mean, would they have to stand out there and wait until you came by again, or?
No. Generally speaking, there's a couple ways to do it. Obviously, when the power's out and your hardwired phone, if you have a copper line phone, that isn't going to be affected. Regular standard telephones still work when the power's out. If you have a voice over IP phone, that isn't going to work, as your computer isn't going to work. If you have a laptop computer with batteries, or somebody say the power was out down their computer, they saw things, you can actually contact us via a number of ways. There's a city Facebook page. You can actually call in via your computer with a computer phone call if you know how to do that. If you have a cell phone, generally those will be working in all but the most serious emergencies when the towers are overloaded. If it gets really, really bad and all those systems are tied up, it becomes that PACE thing. We're now getting down to the C and E emergency level where we do the best we can to get to you. One way to stay advised of what's going on is to sign up for Nixle, which you can go to our website, which is www.columbianapd.org. That gives you the big stuff like tornadoes, major disasters, even some things like boil alerts and so forth we put on there. But in an ad hoc situation like that, we try to patrol and try to go by your house as often as we can. If there's no other way to contact us, flag us down. But the thing is, you got to do the best you can. Plan for those emergencies within your own household. Ask yourself that question: what am I going to do if my power's out and I can't call? Because we can't answer that question for each and every household. All we can tell you is that emergency preparedness begins in your household. What are you going to do if? Have that contingency plan. I don't know how you're going to contact somebody. And the last thing I'd say about that is there's a misconception that government, the police and fire and EMS and government in general can solve your problems, and that is so far from true, it's not even funny. Because in an emergency, everybody gets busy, and I got guys everywhere. We may or may not get to you immediately, and we have to triage those calls. What's the most serious? The heart attack trumps the guy without blankets, and the guy without blankets trumps the guy that's warm but wants to use his computer to watch his favorite show on Hulu or whatever. So we triage that, and so the answer isn't a short one. It's a triage situation. It's doing the best we can to reach everybody, and it's you preparing to find a way to get us if the worst happens in your particular home. Preparedness on the individual level is always the wisest course of action, and we'll do the best we can to get to you and help. Yes, sir.
I'd like to compliment our chief of police for speaking up so everybody can hear what he has to say. I'm sorry to say that there seems to be private conversations going up at the front, but some of us have no clue what's being said.
You can't hear still?
Thank you.
Yes. Related to council, any questions on?
The only thing that I would ask, I thought everything was handled really good last night, but I don't know if any of you knew, but no one notified me. So my phone started going, and I'm getting emails, and there was stuff I was getting through Facebook, and I had no clue what was going on. And so I think it was around midnight, I'm talking to Lance, trying to figure out what was going on, to see if I needed, I would come down here if I needed to. I had no idea. So I would ask that maybe that part of that plan is that we're notified, because even though we're not the first line of defense, for some reason, a lot of people think if we call them, they know what's going on. And I didn't even know that there was a problem, that power was on.
I would think that the best advice I could give you is that during an emergency, notification using the phone, you can see on the radio logs, for instance, if the lights went out at 10:06, we had actually called an officer off the road to relieve the dispatcher for all the calls she was getting on that, so she could call Doug. So notifications were limited to just those people in the emergency operations plan initially. You may get notified at some point, but with all due respect, you're not part of the emergency operations plan at that point. We do the triage, and then at some point during that time, we might get to you at a point where we're able to.
For the charter.
And I'd ask you, what you should do really is refer them to 911 or 9292, we're the gateway, or the gatekeeper for those services. It falls through us, and we evoke the response. There's literally nothing that any of you individually can do other than be citizens and do the best you can to not help them.
Not per the charter, though. I mean, the charter physically states that in the emergency situations, I need to be involved.
Yeah, if it's a declared emergency, sir.
How could I if I didn't know there was one?
No one asked for declaration.
Geez, Brian, I read about it in the paper this morning. You were lucky you heard about it last night.
Yes, I just hope everyone understands. I don't think there's anything wrong, but I think that people call us and I think we look foolish.
I just ask you to understand that we make the notifications the best we can and in the timeless manner that we can. And if we end up notifying 7, 10, 12, 100 people, it becomes prohibitive to do that. We notify the people we need to do to evoke the response. And from there, we ask your indulgence. And I realize that someone may call you and you don't know the answer. I get that all the time. But the best I can do is tell you to refer them to the emergency line if there's a true emergency. We get a lot of calls like, hey, when's the tire going to be marked? What's going on? Those aren't emergencies, and we have to kind of put those people aside and go to the next person with legitimate problems. So I'd only ask you to understand it and to understand that the triage works that way. We're the gatekeeper in the funnel. It has to funnel through us. It shouldn't funnel through any other source because literally you can't evoke a response. If there's a need for a disaster declaration, believe me, we're going to not only be calling, we'll probably be at your house, trying to drag you down there, sign the papers, and I don't know what you're laughing about because you got the checkbook. That's kind of the way the system works. We'll do the best we can, Brian, and I agree that it's awful to be blindsided and certainly didn't know that.
I mean, it wouldn't have been so bad if it weren't for the temperature, but I think it was scaring people.
Yeah, and again, we got no requests at all for services because of the temperature. None. Anybody else? Okay.
Anything else?
Well, I think that's it for just my general report. As far as, we talked about, we should have a discussion about establishing an income tax report. We need to have the tax board review. There's going to be some legislation coming out pending in the Senate. We need to discuss, some people. We have some people in mind, but are open to suggestions. And we're anticipating these. We're looking at a couple of different issues, including penalties and interest. So, if you have anybody that you have in mind, let me know, and then I can bring those names back to the board once I collect them all to council, so we can. It should be somebody that's familiar with experience in income tax preparation and associated issues. Okay, let's see here. Next is the discussion of the budget. That would be Mike. You are up.
Okay. I gave everybody on council a summary of the major items and of each of the major funds. It takes me weeks and long nights and weekends to do the budget, so I did a summary rather than be here for another 3 hours discussing each fund unless you want me to. But in the budget, a couple weeks ago, you heard from the superintendents as given their wish list and what they would like to have. I've listed what is included in the 2014 budget. Unfortunately, not all requests can be included, and however, they do remain a need and will be looked into possible inclusion in next year's budget. As far as the general fund, revenues should remain constant, even though projected local government funds are again decreasing by approximately $14,000. However, I've been notified by the county treasurer that we will be receiving $56,568.15 in inheritance tax, which will make up the difference. But this is most likely the last inheritance tax we will receive because the estate tax has been eliminated in the state of Ohio starting in 2013. The money that we're receiving was from a death that occurred in December of 2012. So that revenue will not be existing from now on. As far as the police appropriations, the chief had requested some increase. It has increased by $48,385 over last year's actual expenditures, which was approximately 4%. I did inform, well, once again, there's a new vehicle included in the budget, along with $50,000 set aside for grant expenditures if needed. That's the city's matching portion. I did inform the chief. I told him not to taser me, but unfortunately, we can't request. He requested another dispatcher and a car for the detective, which at this time I couldn't work in the budget. The streets, capital improvements, the following items I've included. And again, when our superintendents presented their wish list, what they gave Lance and I was a list of about 8 or 10 or 12 items, and we told them to narrow it down to like 3 or 4. So some things did not get in the budget, some other things did, and some smaller items that was on their list made the budget. But the police, or I'm sorry, I already said the police. Capital improvements for the streets department, I've included $130,000 for a dump truck, $35,000 for a tack truck. We do not have a tack truck anymore. They sold it, I guess, a few years ago. Last year, used a tack truck for paving. That's like the oil stuff they put down before they put the blacktop. Last year, we had to rent a tack truck, and that cost us $7,000. So purchasing a tack truck would have a payback of approximately 5 years. And we have $100,000 for paving. The dump truck and tack truck is budgeted in the capital improvements, along with $40,000 for paving. $20,000 is in the street fund for paving, and $40,000 in the motor vehicle license fund for paving. The park cemetery capital improvements, excuse me. One of the main things we have to do, because it's a real hazard, health hazard, is ventilation for the pool chemical storage room. And the estimate on that was $16,750. We would also like to install a road around the new section of the cemetery, and that estimate was between $13,000 and $15,000. And painting of the cemetery iron gates, that estimate was $2,355. I also included some money in buildings and structures for a plumbing upgrade at Pavilion 4. However, we don't have an estimate at this time. Pavilion 4 is not ADA required. That's the American Disability Act. It does not meet the requirements, and so something probably will need to be done with that building in the future. The EMS, the only thing they really wanted was some money set aside for expenditures for grants and reimbursements. And I put $99,500 in there. Actually, that came from the EMS chief. However, the money is not budgeted in the revenues yet because I will not, once we get the money, I'll get an amended certificate of estimated resources from the county auditor when the money is received. We did get notification that we are receiving $40,000 from the Bureau of Workers' Comp. In fact, we received it today in our bank account. Tom is working on the other grants. Excuse me. In the fire fund, $120,000 was budgeted for a brush truck that was requested by the fire chief. The money to repair the parking lot and the garage floor, which is sinking, could possibly come out of capital improvements once we get the estimates. And also in the budget is the first year's loan payment from the fire fund back to the sewer fund that we borrowed last year to pay for the new fire truck. Okay, the water fund. Of course, the new water plant is once again in the budget, as it has been for the last 3 or 4 years. At this time, I budgeted what we've been approved for by USDA for the grant and the loan. And I also budgeted to reissue the water fund notes that mature on June 5th, 2014. One of the notes was supposed to be paid off and rolled into the loan for the water plant, but because of the uncertainty at this time of the progress of the water plant, I had to budget to pay off the notes and then reissue them. Also in the budget will make Matt happy, to re-wax the 1 million gallon storage tank interior. That was estimated at $18,755. Sludge hauling is $40,000. I also put a new truck in there with a plow for $36,000, and the purchase of 100 3/4 inch water meters and 21 1-inch water meters. The total approximate cost on that is $24,000, which is we split those between the water and sewer fund. Also, $20,000 was appropriated last minute under professional services, and that was for the hiring of Bricker and Eckler, who are attorneys, and that was concerning the water plant. The sewer fund, I budgeted as requested to add a full-time employee for the sewer fund, which is included under personal services. Also included is 2 spare pumps for the lift stations. As I mentioned, they're having some problem with one. That's $20,000. Put additional money in there for equipment repairs and half of the cost of the water meters, as I noted above. The electric fund, 2 items were budgeted that were requested: cameras for the north and south substations, and either the North Main Street renovations or the LED lighting project. And I'll let Doug decide which one he wants to do. So they were both approximately $40,000. So I'll let him figure out which ones he wants. Also, we'll be paying off the electric note. This will be the last year, and that'll be paid off on June 5th. And as far as the new bucket truck that Doug requested, which was a big ticket item, $220,000, that is not in the budget, and I feel what we're going to need to do is try to look at financing the truck over probably 4 or 5 year period. That's a lot of money. It's a big chunk to take out of electric fund at one time. That's pretty much, that's all the major funds. Is there any questions? Anybody look over the budget or anything else?
Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
I'm amazed, looking across and sitting and looking at this thing the other night till I was cross-eyed. I imagine you most likely need new glasses after that number.
Yeah, some days.
I think everyone needs to know that actually the budget's coming in less than last year.
Yeah, a little bit.
I think that's amazing with the high cost of everything. I think you did a good job. And I hope we can stick to it.
Okay, thanks.
Good job, Mike.
I have a couple of comments. We're going through it, and I think it's better than in years past, but a couple of observations that I think, rather than, we received this budget on Friday, and there's a motion on here to approve it tonight. You approve a $35 million budget after looking at it for 3 days. To me, I haven't thought it made sense for the last couple of years, and some things that jumped out at me. There's 35 funds on this sheet of paper, of which 30 of them look to be active. There's a couple of them that have nothing going into them. 13 of those funds will be operating with a surplus at the end of this year, so they'll generate some revenue. 17 funds will be depleting funds from the beginning balance from 2013, leaving less principal than it started with. So out of 30, about 60% of them will be deficit, bringing down the bottom line. Of the 13 funds that are operating with a net surplus, only 4 of them will be carrying over more than $10,000. But of the 17 funds that are going to be spending into a deficit, only 7 of them will be under $10,000 in revenue depletion. The rest will be more than $10,000 being spent of the 2013 carryover of principal. That includes the electric, sewer, and several of the others. So above and beyond, when you look at the line items of electric, and it shows that we're bringing in $8.6 million in revenue. We additionally are still deficit spending $91,000. So at the current rate of 11.5 cents that it currently is, we're still losing money, which tells me we're either doing too many projects or we have too many costs loaded into that. This still does nothing about healthcare. That dollar amount hasn't changed one bit. All it did was go back 2 years because it skipped the additional $400,000 it spent last year. So all of this blustering discussion for last year of lowering healthcare, it didn't make it in here. Right?
No, I had a budget for the
I'm just pointing things out before we vote on this, that there is no change on that. Those costs get loaded into our utility rates.
I know we ought to add a few dollars in there for a speaker system.
I don't know what you want me to do. I mean, I can hold it right here, maybe? Yeah.
Can't hear nothing anybody saying up there, so you might as well just buy a few speakers so we can all hear them.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Okay, of the funds that are going to be deficit spending, finishing the year with less than we're starting with, the general fund will be being reduced by $63,000 from its starting state, even after what we bring in. Street fund will be reduced by $18,800. Highway improvement fund down $8,000. Cemetery fund down $23,000. Park fund down $11,000. Enforcement and education $1,100. EMS down $95,000. Escrow down $1,600. I go down the whole list. The bottom line is, at the end of the year, we're spending $673,000 of 2013 money that's carried over above and beyond what we're charging for. There are a couple of funds that leave a surplus, but the net difference at the end of the day is still $254,000 across the entire budget. After $34 million in revenue brought in, we're under in spending in the last year. So it is lower than the last 2 years.
Well, Brian, that 35 million includes the money from the water plant. So I mean, that was almost $15 million right there.
But it did the last 2 years as well. I'm looking at the net difference from year to year. It is going to be $673,000.
Not necessarily. These are projected numbers. They're projected revenues. The revenues could be higher.
But our expenses are guaranteed.
Not necessarily. This is not etched in stone as what we're going to spend. This is what is put in the budget, so it's there, okay, so that we have the money to pay for the bills that we need.
But we're also putting in wish list items. And I'm not saying we shouldn't.
They can be eliminated. I don't have a problem with that.
And I'm not saying we need to eliminate all of them. I'm just letting everyone here know, rather than just rubber stamping this, what's transpiring is that we're going backwards with what's in here. And that's okay, but someday very soon, then we're gonna say, hey, there's no money left, and we can't do something, because we're borrowing from what we have. Even if at this point it's only a budget, if we spend it, it's gone, and we will have authorized it. I don't have anything else to say, I just wanted to point that out. Could you hear that?
Yes.
Are we able to obtain a copy of your
Absolutely.
budget?
Public.
Because I mean, I do know we're not outsourcing as much either because of the new addition to the electric department, which should be saving the city some substantial money as well.
The electric fund. The 2012 final was $8.7 million. 2013 was 9.1, and this is 8.6. So although it did go down, you have to remember that we spent $1 million to upgrade the north substation in 2012 and 2013, and we divided across those 2 years. That was an expense we don't normally have. So 2012 and 2013, although we're 100,000 less, we spent 500,000 more in those 2 years than we normally do. So I mean, I'm not saying that not everything is needed, but I don't believe, and I've said it before, I don't think we can buy it all at one time, and that's what's caused our rates to be where they are.
If that's okay.
I can go over it line by
No,
line.
don't, please, don't, move it along. You confused me, that's okay. Yeah. I see some other faces that are kind of scratching their heads as well.
That's why I wrote it all down. Any questions on the bill list? If not, I'll move into old business. Due to the length of the ordinance, it's going to have a motion reading by title only.
So moved.
Second.
And
Sauer,
yes.
Reping,
Yes.
Schoniger,
Yes.
Callender. Yes. Simpson,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes. Ordinance number 14-0-2754, second reading. An ordinance providing for a contract between the City of Columbiana and Fairfield Township for fire protection and for said township.
So moved.
second.
Any questions? Deanne?
Schoniger,
Yes.
Callender. Yes. Simpson,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Reping,
Yes. Okay, under new business. We already did A. Ordinance number 14-0-2755, first reading. An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Columbiana, State of Ohio for the year 2014, ending December 31st, 2014.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Deanne?
Simpson,
Yes.
Becker,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Reping,
Yes.
Schoniger,
Yes.
Callender. Yes.
Ordinance number 14-0-2756, first reading. An ordinance transferring $1,700,000 from the income tax fund, $850,000 to the general fund, and $850,000 to the capital improvement fund, all for the payment of current expenses as they may arise.
So moved.
Second.
Deanne?
Becker,
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Reping,
Yes.
Schoniger,
Yes.
Callender. Yes. Simpson,
Yes.
Ordinance number 14-0-2757, first reading. An ordinance transferring $376,500 from the general fund, $160,500 to the cemetery fund, and